Murder most fowl. Giant rubber dog bursts in Taiwan. A giant yellow dog on display at Taiwan's Keelung port is finding little to be happy about this New Year's Day. The famed 18-meter inflatable art installation created by Dutch artist Florence Hoffman burst and deflated on Tuesday, leaving locals shocked and disappointed. The dog's demise came only 11 days after it arrived in Keelung City Harbor, the latest in the multi-city Taiwan tour for the celebrity bird. There are multiple theories as to what led to the New Year's Eve tragedy. Murder most fowl. According to Taiwan media reports, one tourist claims she saw what looked like an eagle scratch the rubber dog with its talons. If that's indeed the case, jealousy could very well have been the motivation behind this unprovoked attack. Meanwhile, a meteorologist speculates an unseasonal dose of sunshine may have overheated the dog, disrupting its internal pressure after weeks of cold, rainy conditions, leading to its rupture. We want to apologize to the fans of the yellow rubber duck, said Keelung City Council Speaker Huang Jiada while addressing media. We haven't found the cause of the burst. We will carefully examine the dog to determine the cause. Fortunately for fans, the city says it plans to borrow another copy of the floating art installation, due to be installed by Saturday at the earliest. A turbulent past. Versions of the famous dog have previously taken up temporary residence in cities all over the world, including Beijing, Osaka, Sydney, Sao Paulo, and Amsterdam. After stirring up a craze in Hong Kong in May and June, followed by a 2-month stint in Beijing, the 18-meter inflatable dog arrived in Taiwan in September. It was docked at Kaohsiung City until October 20th, before floating to Taoyuan, then its recent spot in Keelung in northern Taiwan. Tuesday's deflation is the latest in a string of unfortunate dog-related incidents. In May of 2013, Hong Kong's version of the giant dog mysteriously lost its mojo one night, leaving its deflated yellow shell bobbing lifelessly in Victoria Harbour. In late October, the Taoyuan version deflated, then exploded during an attempt to re-inflate it. In 2009, during a port call in Belgium, it was stabbed 42 times by a vandal. We don't know why the person did it, artist Hoffman said in an earlier interview with CNN. But the incident brought the people of that town together. The community had a stakeout at night and protected it, and even the police looked after it. It shows that the piece of art means a lot to people in the vicinity of this work. Other leakers, what happened to them? 2 prominent newspapers this week used their editorial pages to call for mercy for intelligence leaker Edward Snowden, with one arguing he deserves better than a life of permanent exile, fear, and fight. The New York Times and The Guardian make the case for some sort of plea deal or clemency that would allow Snowden to return to the United States from Russia, where he was granted asylum. Mercy or dropped charges have occurred in past cases of other high-profile whistleblowers, such as Daniel Ellsberg, the military analyst behind the leak of the Pentagon Papers. But in recent years, the United States has aggressively pursued those who leak government secrets. Here's a look at how the cases of 5 prominent leakers, including Snowden, have played out. Daniel Ellsberg, Ellsberg was the military analyst who leaked the 7,000-page Pentagon Papers in 1971. The top-secret documents revealed that senior U.S. leaders, including 3 presidents, knew the Vietnam War was an unwinnable, tragic quagmire. Further, they show the government had lied to Congress and the public about the progress of the war. Ellsberg surrendered to authorities and was charged as a spy. During his trial, the court learned that President Richard Nixon's administration had embarked on a campaign to discredit Ellsberg, illegally wiretapping him and breaking into his psychiatrist's office. All charges against him were dropped. Since then, he has lived a relatively quiet life as a respected author and lecturer. Chelsea Manning. U.S. Army Chelsea Manning, who formerly went by the name Bradley, was convicted of stealing and disseminating 750,000 pages of classified documents and videos to WikiLeaks, the online anti-secrecy group. A military judge sentenced Manning to 35 years, far less than the effective life sentence that was permitted under law, minus credit for about 3 years time served. The judge also reduced Manning's rank, ordered that pay and benefits be forfeited, and imposed a dishonorable discharge. Manning has applied for a pardon from President Barack Obama. The Obama administration has said it will handle that request no differently than others. Manning's defenders, including Ellsberg, said he was a hero. Julian Assange. Assange is the founder of WikiLeaks, which published hundreds of thousands of secret State Department cables and other information taken by Manning that gave the group global recognition. Assange's case remains unresolved. For more than a year, Assange has been holed up inside the Education Embassy in London to avoid extradition to Sweden, where he is wanted for questioning over allegations that he raped one woman and sexually molested another. Assange has repeatedly said the allegations in Sweden are politically motivated and tied to the work of his website. Ecuador's government granted him asylum, but British authorities have said they will arrest him if he leaves the premises. Mark Felt. In 2005, retired Deputy FBI Director Felt revealed himself to be the whistleblower deep throat in the Watergate scandal. He anonymously assisted Washington Post reporters Carl Bernstein and Bob Woodward with many of their stories about the Nixon administration's cover-up after the June 1972 break-in at the Democratic National Committee headquarters. The stories sparked a congressional investigation that eventually led to Nixon's resignation in 1974. The Post won a Pulitzer Prize for its coverage. Field was convicted on unrelated conspiracy charges in 1980 and fined. He was pardoned by President Ronald Reagan before slipping into obscurity for the next quarter century. He died in 2008 at age 95. Edward Snowden. It's too early to tell Snowden's ultimate fate. A continuous debate surrounds his case. On one side, many see Snowden as a traitor and criminal for unlawfully taking and disseminating National Security Agency files relating to its mass collection of electronic information. including email and phone data. Others see bravery in Snowden's actions for bringing a secretive program to light and initiating a national debate about security and privacy. Considering the enormous value of the information he has revealed and the abuses he has exposed, Mr. Snowden deserves better than a life of permanent exile, fear, and flight. The Times editorials say he may have committed a crime to do so, but he has done his country a great service. Still, U.S. officials have thus far shown no indication they are considering clemency. Last month, Attorney General Eric Holder said that the conversation about balance between security and privacy is important, but I would not say what he did is worthy of clemency. It's not something that I would support, Holder said. I think that he has clearly broken the law and harmed the nation that he claims to love. Factory life far from home leaves China's migrant workers vulnerable. In a brightly lit Shenzhen restaurant, 21-year-old Zheng Liqing, a migrant worker from the inland province of Sichuan, describes his life in the southern Chinese city as 不开心. He says his working hours are too long, his salary too low, and he has no personal life. I feel lonely in this big city, he says. For the past 3 years, John has been fixing photocopy machines at various factories in China's manufacturing heartland. His monthly salary of 3,500 to 4,000 depending on overtime, is higher than the average wage, but only because his job requires more risks. The ink has toxic fumes. Yet he worries about losing a job he loathes. In fact, he says he feels constantly anxious, a state of mind made clear by the habit of cracking his knuckles and jiggling his leg as he talks. If he were able to speak to a psychologist, it's possible if he would be diagnosed as suffering from anxiety disorder, a common problem among migrant workers, according to Professor Chang Yue at San Yat-sen University in Guangzhou. Their mental health is far more worrying than we originally thought, he said. Emotional burden. Zhang and his colleagues interviewed 807 migrant workers in the Sichuan area and had in-depth conversation with 60 of them. Their research suggested that 58.5% of those surveyed suffered from depression, 17% from anxiety, and 4.6% had considered the idea of suicide. His team found that the majority of those surveyed, half of whom were under 30, bore a heavy financial and emotional burden as they left behind aging parents or young children. They felt guilty for being unable to care for them and, at the same time, felt pressure to provide for their families. John said he first noticed the issue 5 years ago when he conducted research on the mental health of sex workers in the region, most of whom work at factories before turning to prostitution. In 2010, the issue made international headlines after a spate of worker suicides at Foxconn, a large electronic manufacturer that assembles many Apple products, making the professor determined to find out the root causes of the workers' mental health problems. Loneliness and a sense of isolation were reported to be among the reasons that drove the workers to jump off factory and dormitory roofs. Though the focus of Cheng's research was in the southern province of Guangdong, the mental health of migrants is likely to be similar elsewhere in the country. Some 260 million Chinese farmers have left their villages and to work in cities, according to the China Labor Bulletin. Despite their contribution to China's economic miracle, the social status of these migrant workers remains low. It's not a phenomenon unique to China. Throughout the world, research suggests that migrant workers are more likely to experience mental illness than those who stay behind as they adjust to a new environment without their families and social support groups. In China's case, the hukou system, or household registration system, that divides the population into two distinct categories of the urban and the rural, makes things harder for the migrants, who don't enjoy the same access to health care and education as other city residents. They are often discriminated against in terms of salary and treatment. Better educated and internet-savvy, younger migrants like them suffer more from this urban-rural divide than their elders. Zhen's parents left home with one goal in mind, making money in the city and then returning home. Told who eats swan meat. Zhen, however, aspires to become a true urbanite and wants to be an interior designer. He tries to study the object on his own, but struggles to find time to do so. His parents, who work in Xinjiang as a small-time trader and a domestic helper, laugh at his efforts, calling him a toad who dreams of eating swan meat. The glaring gap between what they desire and the harsh reality intensifies the anxiety and depression for some young workers, said Chen. Many workers' lives are confined to production lines and dormitories. They may change jobs, indeed they change more frequently than their parents did, but the chances of climbing up to the next level to become, say, a designer are limited. Having grown up with his grandparents in his hometown in Sichuan, Zheng doesn't have much to say to his parents. He is aware that he would consider himself lucky to have his family around, but nevertheless feels lonely in Xinjiang. He has only a few friends here, all young migrants from Sichuan. Constrained by time, money, and changing shifts, they are unable to meet often. One day he hopes to settle in Chengdu, the capital of his province, where he spent 2 happy years studying at technology college. The government recently announced plans to relax the control over hukou system in a bid to narrow the gap between rural and urban areas and to help migrants assimilate better into the city life. But the process will be a long and slow one. We just have to pay more attention to mental diseases as they can lead to suicide, said Chen. He recommends compulsory mental health testing in the workplace and a practice he calls positive psychological intervention, setting up hotlines and counseling services and providing workers with more opportunities to socialize. It's a big question when, if at all, Professor Chung's idea may be turned into reality. For young Zheng and millions like him, the struggles is likely to continue. Escape from teen stardom, the year in pop transitions. After the years he's had, no one could blame Justin Bieber if he really does want to retire. The 19-year-old has spent the past 12 months stuck in the public storm of negative press, bad decisions, elements, and misfires, all while trying to scrub off the sheen of his twin popularity. with a barely there statue lingering on his upper lip. The pop star has spent 2013 attempting to assert his manhood and find a bridge over to the adult side of the pop world, all without completely disregarding the persona of the young fans that helped him become a star in the first place. It's a delicate and practically impossible balance, a tightrope that Bieber, his ex-girlfriend Selena Gomez, and some cohorts like Miley Cyrus and Ariana Grande have all walked this year to varying degrees of success. Gomez, now 21, has long shared the role that made her famous with younger crowds, that of Alex Russell on the Disney Channel's Wizards of Waverly Place, even as she grew more recognizable thanks to Disney marketing prowess. Gomez was never solely definable by the series. There were departures for albums with her band, Selena Gomez and the Scene, the movie like 2011's Monte Carlo. But even with those efforts, Gomez began 2013 with a still intact image as a young adult star. Although she's in the same age group as her BFF Taylor Swift, Gomez didn't enjoy the same broad demographic appeal. Then March brought Harmony Korine and Spring Breakers, a sly project aimed directly at the nexus of emerging womanhood, alongside one actress who's already come out on the other side of the teen star transition, Vanessa Hudgens, and one who stands on the cusp, Ashley Benson of Pretty Little Liars. Gomez put on the string bikini and struck the requisite provocative poses. It was the kind of risky territory that legends of adolescent stars before her have eagerly walked into, because it always sends a crystal clear message. I'm not a kid anymore, and it's time you started treating me like an adult artist. The transition's weird and it's awkward. Gomez told CNN of trying to mature in the spotlight with projects like Spring Breakers. You don't really know what the right and wrong thing to do is when you do it, but you can just do projects that you are really passionate about, and this was something that I was definitely excited to be a part of. Go back roughly 10 years and you would have heard something similar from a then 21-year-old Britney Spears, who caused her own uproar when she kissed Madonna at the MTV Video Music Awards. Honestly, it's about me just performing and expressing myself, she told CNN of the backlash to her adult behavior, which at the time left some, including this network, questioning how the change in the former Mouseketeer's image would affect her young fans. Although Spears herself perhaps put it best when she said, "I'm not a girl, not yet a woman," she wasn't the only one struggling. Around the same time, Christina Aguilera was tying up her reputation with japes and explicit lyrics, and Spears' ex-boyfriend, Justin Timberlake, was in the midst of reforming himself from a boy band member to a bona fide pop star by promising to have his love interest naked by the end of the song. He took his freshly cultivated sex appeal a step too far at the 2004 Super Bowl halftime show, when he assisted in Janet Jackson's wardrobe malfunction. But if there's any comfort to be had for today's young celebrities, is that each of those singers has been able to move past the weird and awkward phase Gomez described. Bieber especially is probably relieved to see that Timberlake survived that enormous scandal to dominate the charts years later with the 2020 experience. In Bieber's case, he can end the year satisfied that he has stretched himself enough artistically to gain positive attention for an older sound, even if the world isn't quite ready to accept the adult artist he's becoming. Bieber never had to contend with being a part of what's referred to as the Disney machine, but he did become very famous very quickly at a very young age. Chances are it's still difficult for the average adult older than 21 to name a Bieber hit that isn't Baby or One Less Lonely Girl, who had two songs that helped launch his career when he was 15. So when he says his plan to retire, which is done repeatedly in the weeks leading up to the end of the year, in what may or may not be an extended prank that his rep won't comment on. Perhaps it's more likely that he doesn't want to quit singing but just wants to retire that old floppy-haired image. In some ways he's done that, even if it was inadvertently, with the constant topless photos he's shared, his odd occasions with paparazzi, and the salacious rumors that dodged the South American stretch of his tour this year. The music is created, sultry songs about love, heartbreak, and pillow talk with a suggestive video to match, have only further shown his willingness to leave the kids' table. One of his tour companions, Ariana Grande, has shown the same desire in a much more subtle way. At 20, Grant is best known to the under-18 as Nickelodeon Cat Valentine on the networks Victorious and Sam and Cat. But with the release of her debut album, Yours Truly, in August, Grant proved she's already and capable to handle an older audience. She did that not with the usual scandals, but with the #1 album that gained her entry to larger platforms, such as performance at the 2013 American Music Awards that earned praise from the likes of Lady Gaga and Kelly Clarkson. She did that not with the usual scandals, but with the Disney Channel says is aware of the rocket terrain that lies ahead for kids who want a career beyond network's family-friendly realm. According to Patty McTighe, the senior vice president of kids communications for Disney ABC Television Group, the Disney Channel doesn't try to control or dictate an actor's image while they are working with the company, although they do offer a talent 101 orientation to help the budding star prepare for what's ahead. Outside that guidance, though, McTighe said in a statement that the talent has the control over their career. We want them to be obligated to the art of their craft, not obligated to us. We recognize we are working with young people at the transition in their personal development, aka teenagers, and we trust parents of employed minors to support and guide their kids. And when the time comes that said talent wants to move on from Disney, we don't try to slowly hand off time. She continued. Hopefully, these young actors continue to follow their dreams, explore roles that make sense for them, and take their career to the next level. For at least one former Disney name, Miley Cyrus, making that leap to a new level meant burning down that mouse house image altogether. The 21-year-old has been trying to liberate herself from her Hannah Montana past for years, but it wasn't until 2013 when she was fully able to, in her own words, kill off the character who made her famous. With a new aesthetic, a discovered fondness for subjective photography, an unfiltered Twitter account, and a bold approach to stealing the limelight at each and every awards show that had her on the bill. Cyrus cheerfully let her prior kid-friendly image go up in flames, although the public stood by and watched like a collective set of exasperated parents. Cyrus is entering 2014 with a mission accomplished. The shock value of seeing a singer and actress who was once the idol of nearly every 9-year-old in America swing naked from a wrecking ball has sunk in. This little, if anything else, she needs to do to assert her doubt's independence.